Hello and welcome. We're all finally here somewhat. This is the debut episode of the Ballbusters. So, yeah, this is the first episode and kind of why we're not all together right now. Sort of living situation at the moment. I am not currently able to go anywhere besides work. Living with my parents at the moment till I find a new place, and because of high risk to catching the COVID-19. They have asked that I remain indoors aside from work. So, looking for a new place, hoping to move out in the next week or so that we can all be together for episode 2, which will be a follow-up of this one, being The Evil Dead 2. That being said, today we're talking about The Evil Dead. But before we dive into that, let's kind of touch base, because it's been a while since the three of us have actually been together to hang out somewhat. So, what's going on with you guys?
Not much, honestly, just kind of working, playing games, doing the usual.
Right.
This year's been something for me. Oh, I was unemployed for a good chunk of the year, so that was fun. Dealt with some heartaches, and then 2 months ago I started working at a dispensary, so now I just work with weed, and now things are pretty fucking awesome.
Right. Awfully fitting. You guys smoking on anything tonight?
Yeah, we just actually dabbed a little bit ago. I also had my pad.
Nice.
Which, I want to say was citrus fuel. I know the stuff out there was, 6 different oils, so you can't remember all of them.
Just running a gauntlet out there?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Nice. For those of you who don't know what a gauntlet is, it's basically, just think Infinity War. You gotta basically get all 6 Infinity Stones to snap away half of life's inconsistencies and inconveniences. The stones being the dabs. So, there you go. I'm just sitting here with a bowl of gas leak right now. I don't really dab like that hard anymore.
I don't know, for some reason, the way you casually said gas leak, a bowl of it, for some reason, it actually sounded like you're sitting there with, just a gas leak on your car.
Oh yeah, I'm recording in my garage with the door closed. I'm sitting in my car, and I got the engine running. Windows open.
Classic style of hotboxing, huh?
Mm-hmm. I'm going traditional tonight. I'm a little old-fashioned. Caleb, how about you? You already said.
You a little high there, Dan?
No, just, don't remember who's already talked. Relationships, new jobs, and video games. Caleb, you mentioned video games. What games have you been playing, man?
Oh, dude. Just basically, anything that's good. Been playing some Doom Eternal. Picked up Gears Tactics last night. That's really fun. Doom Eternal, obviously, I think it's fucking fantastic.
I want Doom Eternal to get.
Honestly, it's such a good game. But Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord is fucking awesome. That game is really good too. It's in a sense, it's a strategy fucking role playing game, but its playstyle changes depending on what you're doing. It's weird because you can be a fucking bandit and stuff like that in there, but you could also always just be a merchant and never fight, and you want to just be going around selling stuff. It's all completely valid plays. So I guess it would be winning stuff in RPG titles, but whatever. Don't look at me like that, Foster. I'll kick your ass.
Well, that's lit. I've played the game a little bit, not as much as you guys have, but it's a pretty awesome game. I just suck with the platforming. It really pisses me off. Makes me feel like I'm in 3rd grade trying to figure out multiplication again.
I think the platforming adds to the game, honestly.
I think once you learn the platforming, you'll kind of like it. It's just one of those things. It's a little...
Takes a lot of getting used to, and a lot of trial and error.
Oh yeah, and always remember with it, there's green lights wherever you need to go. and they're just like vaguely glowing. So if you're like platforming, just look for like something that's lit up, essentially.
Often that's my biggest problem. Like I'll find something, but it's so fucking far away. Like it's clearly not what I'm supposed to jump to next. Because like even if you like double jump and time your dashes perfectly, it's like it's very clear that was not your next jumping point. And a lot of times they're like, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes they're like not like they're really hard to point out from where you're at. But I don't know. That's just me. It kind of gets frustrating sometimes, but.
For sure. Like, my first playthrough, I got lost on some of the platforming. Like, I'm not gonna act like I didn't. But
I will say this. I'm not gonna lie. I think the combat in it is the best the Doom series has been, probably since old school Doom.
Oh yeah,
I think it's some of the best game combat, period.
It's like some of the best like first-person shooter shit, honestly, because like the range of motion you have in that game is insane.
Yeah.
They want you to utilize your entire arsenal, not just like the super shotgun and the BFG.
Yeah, which is fair. You don't want it to just be like one of those games where like, what's the point of finding all these different weapons and like getting ammo for them and shit if all you really use is the shotgun or something like that?
Yeah, this is 2016 for me, honestly. I just used the rocket launcher and the shotgun.
I really like the rifle.
That's like the discrepancy that I had with 2016. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like 2016, but it's the fact that you could get like just massive amounts of ammo.
Super easily.
Yeah.
Stockpile it, and then you would just never need to use like a different type of weapon. I appreciate Doom Eternal for the fact that they're literally like kind of forcing you to fucking spew out all your ammo.
They'll give it to you back, but yeah, they want you to like be familiar with everything.
I mean,
yeah,
it's not hard to get it back, but I mean, they want you to use like everything though.
The chainsaw, like the use of the chainsaw, I thought was cool.
Mm.
I felt like in 2016, like I used the chainsaw all the time in like Doom 64 and like Doom 2, like just to get through like fucking shit when I start getting low on ammo. But I can't really say a lot. In Doom 2, I kind of just exclusively use the super shotgun once I get it, so.
This is gonna take a lot of editing. Today's feature film. So basically how we chose the episodes for the podcast, at least the first 9 episodes, everybody picked a trilogy. We decided Caleb got first dibs. He called out his trilogy first, and he chose the original Evil Dead trilogy. So now we've all seen the remake. I think everyone here agrees that we, pretty much for the most part like the remake, but it's pretty different from what we got with the Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, for sure. I mean, it was cool that Bruce Campbell, Rob Tappert, and Sam Raimi were all still involved and whatnot, and their influence was definitely felt. It did also definitely stand out on its own, which wasn't bad. It was what I personally wanted. But we wanted to focus for right now on the original trilogy, that being Caleb's pick. So, Foster, go ahead with the spoiler warning.
Well, this is a spoiler warning for a movie that's almost 40 fucking years old. So if you haven't watched the movie, watch the fucking movie.
This is kind of ironic. This will kind of spill into, like, when we go into, like, some of the basic facts about the film. It's kind of shocking how many times this movie was released on home video. It's been released, it's been released 6 different times on DVD between Anchor Bay and Elite Studios. And then potentially 4 times on Blu-ray, along with its sequel, and now it and Evil Dead 2 both have a 4K. So this movie has definitely seen circulation throughout even retail stores for a long enough time. Streaming, however, is a little bit different. The full movie is available on YouTube at the moment in parts, but is not actually officially there to buy or rent from YouTube, like literally all 3 of the other films in the collective series are.
This is bullshit. Fuck you, YouTube.
I know, I thought it was really weird. If anybody wanted to get into the Evil Dead series, The first
I think
one.
that's something to do with the original studio they filmed it with, though. Because remember, in what is it, Evil Dead 2's like intro, they pretty much completely redid the story. Like, it's less of a recap and more of like a different telling of it. Because there's like it's just Bruce and his girlfriend.
Campbell put it. It was like the most like complicated fucking title that he gave it. It was like
The title of the movie?
no. The like just the little like clip for the beginning for 2 because they had to like redo like 1 at the beginning so they could get to the story of 2. Like, you know how they like changed it up.
It was I don't know, was it something like remake of the original at the beginning of the sequel?
No, I'm just trying to remember what his quote was. I just remember it was something complicated because he was like, people always ask me if that was a remake or if it's a sequel, so he called it a requel, I think, because he was like, it was a bit of both. And I was just like, that's the most complicated way of like putting that, Bruce. That just makes that sound more complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
Bruce is known for his chin, not his brain. I'm just kidding.
Man, he's probably fucking smarter than all 3 of
Oh
us.
yeah, dude.
Caleb,
Also,
do
the
you
fact that he could literally kill me with his chin, I'm just saying.
Caleb, do you just want to go into it?
What?
Do you
The
just
fact
want?
that I want to fuck Bruce Campbell?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, his fucking chin is crazy, dude.
There's like
That man,
that was the main point you brought up to us when we talked about the original Evil Dead movies, was Bruce Campbell. It was pretty abundantly clear you were a fan of not just the movies, but of the man.
he's fucking. He's just fucking hilarious in everything he's in. He's like a fantastic fucking actor. Like, all the stunts and shit in like the Evil Dead movies, he does completely himself. Even in like his like Ash vs. Evil Dead series.
Oh, I bet.
At that point, he's like fucking. He's getting a little older, you know. Like,
Yeah.
He's still fucking out there, fucking balls to the wall. It's pretty impressive stuff, honestly.
I would hope now with the budget of the, well, not now because the series isn't going on anymore. I'd hope they have the budget to like
Before we go any further, do we want to, Dan? Do you want to give like a brief summary on what the plot of Evil Dead's about?
No, it's not important. No. Basically, well, I mean, it is, but it's also kind of like, even if you haven't seen it, like, you kind of know the outline. It's like a few friends go out to a cabin in the woods and they smoke pot, they drink, and they have sex, and bad shit happens. The one thing that the 2 main things that separated it from everything else were that it was not a slasher, and it was very heavy on the brutality and the gore.
The movie was fucking over the top with the gore. That's what made it so like popular. That's what like drew a lot of the attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah, remember the fucking like geysers of blood and shit.
I'm trying to think of like what is the like goriest movie before then, and there wasn't really. I don't really recall much in terms of like something that we would still look back on and say, oh my god, that was insanely gory. The only thing I could say that like even to my memory like had that volume before then was Dawn of the Dead.
Evil Dead kind of like, I feel like, revolutionized how we like kind of came to see horror movies. Because Evil Dead went from it having to be like a slasher or some like crazy batshit fucking like serial killer coming after you and you kind of situation, you know, to more of an ambient horror where it was like, yeah, there was like a demon there trying to get you, but like no matter what he did, essentially, it was always going to be there. Like.
And it was almost like it was almost a reverse of the slasher series. Instead, the slasher is the one we root for, and he's not killing innocent people. He's killing people who are like possessed and trying to kill him. So it's like
about this movie though, for how like over the top and shit that it can get though. Like times, but I mean, that's what adds to the experience of it, is the fact that Deadites, when they're in their true form anyway, when they haven't possessed anyone, you have no fucking idea what they look like, because you're just the moving panel, like, with them. Like, you kind of are the Deadite when it's moving.
I've always loved that about Evil Dead, is like how it kind of has always kept that as a staple, you know? The fucking... that first-person view of a Deadite coming after you kind of situation. I'm like, man, that used to creep me out so much as a kid when I seen that.
This movie actually, like, for how campy it is, it actually has an insanely, like, haunting atmosphere. I actually kind of remember being creeped out by this as a kid, too.
Honestly, I think this movie holds up pretty good. Like, if you go in knowing that, like, the budget it was made on kind of situation like that.
That's pretty impressive.
Like it's really it's a lot more horror driven. Like there is a little bit of humor in the first one, but if you look at it compared to like the rest, like you can tell they were going for a horror movie in this one a lot more than the second one. The second one's where it really started to find its roots and became what we know as Evil Dead, because it started getting that slapstick humor, like, I mean, like, fucking...
I think on the Army of Darkness Blu-ray, Bruce Campbell said that, like, the first one was a horror, the second one was a comedy, the third one was an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, that's about how it really is in the end there, honestly.
I think they all, blend, like, the line between horror and, like, comedy, or with Army of Darkness, with action and comedy.
All I know is his Army of Darkness is goofy as shit, and like I like all the fucking like all the endings. Like okay, I'm just gonna stop because like I don't want to fucking start talking about Army of Darkness before we get there. But my god, dude, some of the fucking shit.
Yeah.
The endings was goofy.
Oh, that'll be an episode for sure. Holy shit.
But back to the first one, like the first one, like I feel like. You couldn't have Evil Dead without the first one, no matter how you think about it, honestly. Like
you can watch the second one and get the gist, but the first one is like something like completely different and worth watching on its own, basically, right?
You can't skip the first one. You have to watch the first one. Like
I would think so, yeah.
Different. Yeah, even if the plot's different, like it's just the first one's an experience you have to have. Like the first one is so fucking different, and like all the actors put so much effort into it and shit, you know.
I don't think you have
so
to.
Much with that budget, dude. Holy fuck!
I don't think you have to watch it first, but I do think if you are,
you have to watch it.
No, here's the thing. I don't think you have to watch it first. You can watch Evil Dead 2 because it does technically like do over the history and the background of the first one. But I think if you're going to watch the second one and then you're going to watch Army of Darkness, you may as well watch the first one because it's not just the same movie. It's not even the same tone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like you don't have to start off with the first one.
Yeah.
You can skip it and go straight to the second one. Like that's whatever. Like who cares? But you do need to like experience the first one at some point. I feel.
Yeah, and especially horror fans, like people getting into horror.
Yeah, because that's like one of the OG horror movies.
And
that movie is a big deal. Like, it's a big fucking fish, honestly.
It really is. Like, still, even, like, a lot of people put the Evil Dead movies above Halloween or Friday the 13th. With good reason. All four movies are consistently good. And are, like, not just a rehash of the film that came before it. They tried different things, and for the most part, they landed pretty well.
I still personally prefer Evil Dead over all of them, though. Honestly, like
I do too.
Halloween, I really do love Halloween, and like that's definitely like something I'm excited to go over at some point.
Friday the 13th is my favorite traditional slasher series. I think my favorite horror series is probably the Evil Dead films.
I think Halloween is a great slasher series, but like it kind of loses itself. Like as it keeps going on. Like honestly, I think it should have probably just been a 2-movie fucking series. I should have just had part 1 and part 2. Even like honestly, just one part personally. But
yeah, we didn't need to, but for how unnecessary it was. It was far better than what it could have been.
How many of those fucking movies did they make? Like fucking.
There's 11 now, and they're working on a 12th.
I did like the new one because Dan gave me his voodoo.
Well, yeah, the new one's good, but like, holy shit, dude. How many universe resets is this now?
They didn't reset the universe, though, because it still goes off the original
It's a different timeline, though, because...
It is a different timeline. They ignore...
Yeah,
they ignore even part 2.
Yeah, that's ending. That one, that's going off the first one. Like, pretty much every other movie that's come out after the second one is its own fucking timeline, I'm pretty sure, as well.
I'll say this about Halloween. I think the only classic, like, the only, like... essential viewing of the entire series is the original. There are other films in the series I like I like 2, I like 4, I like the remake, and I like the new one.
So I was gonna say 3 didn't even have Mike Myers in it.
No, I liked what it was going for. I liked the concept. The execution was weak to me.
Was that the one where they had the fucking Halloween masks and all that shit? That fucking little jingle for the fucking Halloween masks.
It just annoys the piss out of me.
Commercial is like burned into the back of my head, but I can't remember the exact lyrics, and it's like really fucky. I hate that fucking movie because of it, but like I also don't like the movie because of it.
God damn it! I even turned my volume off.
What, are you watching porn or something?
No, it was my alarm. It was my smoke. It was my alarm to let me know I can go smoke that I have not been paying attention to.
Back to the Evil Dead, dude. You guys are like, what was like your favorite scene though? Honestly,
tree rape. No.
That fucking seems fucking wild as shit.
It felt like I honestly felt like that could have just been in a Tim Burton movie, like a project of his from film school or something. It was so wacky and unconvincing.
Half-ass wish it wasn't there because it's like so uncomfortable to watch. But like I guess that's like kind of the point of it. But like at the same time, like it's just like kind of doesn't even fit like the flow of even the first one. Like it's just kind of out there, like because like
it's just weird.
Fit the rest of the series, but like my god, does that not fit the fucking first one?
Army of Darkness is your favorite because there's no tree rape.
The tree rape scene in the fucking first one was like again like a really weird scene that I'm still not sure needed to be there at times, but
the remake really makes that like though. I mean, the remake, I for sure I'm like I can live without that.
The remake is just, it really kind of shows how far we've come with special effects and how they can really change the feel of a scene.
Yeah, like because in the first one you knew what was going on, like in the original fucking Evil Dead anyways, like you knew what was going on by all means, but when you watch that fucking the remake, holy shit, dude, like it's like really graphic and like you can definitely
it's like,
tell.
oh, you're actually getting raped. I don't like that.
Before we get into favorite scenes any further, though, I did want to bring up one thing about the release of this movie, going back to what I said about it being ironic how many releases of this movie were on home video, considering how many countries this movie got banned in for its graphic content for the time. The film was apparently banned in Germany, Iceland, Finland, Jesus Christ, Ukraine, Singapore, and others, and was labeled one of the first video nasties in the UK. Have either of you guys heard of the video nasties?
I haven't, but like all I gotta say is censorship is fucking retarded.
Agreed. And basically that was like an exercise of that in the UK. They gave a lot of movies like that video nasties, like The Wild Bunch. I would assume Pink Flamingos. I'm almost certain. Yeah, Clockwork Orange was. Some really important films. Yeah, that was just one of the things you would see on the cover when you rented it was video nasty.
Like, what does it even mean? That just sounds fucking stupid.
It means how it sounds. It's basically like this is just riddled with nasty behavior and content that we don't really approve of, but we have to sell to you anyway because, you know, no law says we can't.
Go fucking stupid. Honestly, if you like, I don't know, like, what is that fucking, what is that censorship? And, like, honestly, on another note with the UK, how about the fact that, like, Watership Down is, like, considered a children's movie? Even though, like, that movie's, like, insanely graphic and has a lot of, like, really distressing imagery in it.
Lots
like,
of graphic
Plague Dogs
animal
as well.
killing and shit.
Have you guys ever seen Plague Dogs? That fucking movie's fucking depressing as shit.
Watership Down definitely gave a lot of kids PTSD. I never watched that as a kid. I had no idea what the fuck it was till I was like 15.
Yeah,
so
I think
was
same.
it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I'm glad I never watched that.
Yeah, that movie was really fucking.
Yeah, that movie probably would have scared the shit out of me as a kid. Especially with how, like, cracked out the fucking one group of bunnies look.
Oh, God,
We had it on VHS for some fucking reason. I was a kid and I remember watching it. I was like I watched it with my sisters or something like that. And like,
Watership Down?
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. Fucking straight up. That's how young I was. I was like, that's when I was like getting into Doom.
It's based on a book, right?
Yeah.
And the fucking guy was asked how he came up with this story, and apparently he just told this, like, he just progressively just, like, made this story, like, by telling it to his daughters, when they would, like, go on trips on the English countryside. I'm like, who the fuck tells their children this kind of story?
He's just like, hey there, girls. So, there's just a bunch of rabbits over there that are getting buried alive. That's what's considered wholesome in England, apparently.
But yeah, no Evil Dead. No.
But no Evil Dead, though. It's because of the tree rape scene, I'm telling you. Like, that's probably legit, like, why. Like, at least a huge reason.
Oh
I
wait,
know the fountains of fucking fake blood were a big thing, too, I guess.
we legally have to put it out to the public? Oh, shit. Well, it's still nasty, so we're slapping that on the cover. I'd love to see a tape, like, from the UK, like, with the fucking display box and everything, just to see what the fucking UK, like, had to say about it exactly. I feel like they didn't just stop with video nasty.
Right.
And, I mean, it doesn't really help that the film was kind of, like, released without a rating. The film was submitted to the MPAA a few times, I believe, and every time they sent it back and said this is gonna be an X, they figured it was probably just better off selling it as a non-rated movie at like drive-ins and like midnight showings and shit.
So for fucking a lot of those movie theaters that kind of just showed an array of fucking shit anyway, so you don't really have to have like a certain age to go into them.
Yeah, and I would figure with a title like Evil Dead and like I'm sure like the images on the box and whatnot and the poster and shit, like no parent is gonna look at that and say, this is probably the best thing for my 6-year-old to watch. I don't understand why the video nasties thing was needed, unless maybe it was because of the non-rated it not having a rating.
Okay, well, like, why the fuck would you call it video nasties, though? Like, I'm still this is the part I can't get over. That's so fucking stupid.
It's a different culture, I guess, and it was a different time, too. Like, most movies in the United States, like, you put it out in theaters with an X, and that meant your movie was just not gonna make shit.
Because I remember with Evil Dead 2, because you remember, right, and fucking, like, some of the gore is green.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they did that on purpose, because they were trying to lower the, like, rating, so they could actually have it, like, be in theaters and shit, so it wasn't a direct-to-release.
Now, one thing I gotta, like, double check on with Evil Dead 2 when we get around to that one is, because the Blu-ray I have is also not rated, I wonder if that ended up getting released with a not rated anyway. Or if it actually went to theaters with an R and subsequent, like, home video releases and shit just got the extra footage that was cut.
Right. that's kind of something, like, to look into. Evil Dead 2 is, like, has, like, I don't know, do you ever want to, like, I guess, like, read the director's scripts for, like, Evil Dead 2 and just kind of see what it was like, what it was kind of more like before they, like, not necessarily started editing it for, like, audiences, but before, like, he had edited it at all, like, from showing it to, like, actors and shit like that, you know, before he changed it, just to see what it was like originally.
Personally, I don't think that's a curtain I would want to peek behind. I think the dialogue in those movies are not particularly good, and even in the first Spider-Man movie and a good portion of Spider-Man 3, meaning the majority of the movie, the dialogue is not very... I think Sam Raimi, at least, whenever he heads a production and shit, I think he has a good knack for finding actors who can give good delivery. Bruce Campbell being a big example of that. But, you know, his lines are kind of trash in every one of these movies, minus Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
And like
I feel like a lot of the point of his movies, though, is to be cheesy.
Did we talk about what a huge driving point Stephen King was, though, in making Evil Dead popular to begin with?
Yeah, because he saw it and he basically praised it as being completely original and, like, pushing the envelope and shit. And that's what wound up as being the quote on the VHS and, rental stores and shit.
Without him, too, we wouldn't have gotten Evil Dead 2.
That is true.
Because, what was it? He knew some production assistant or something like that, right?
I think so. It's probably in my Evil Dead 2 notes.
And Raimi needed, like, funding for it, and King was like, yo, call these guys.
Probably, it would make sense because there was a much higher spike in the budget in Evil Dead 2. Which, speaking of the budget of Evil Dead 1, this movie was made for, like, roughly $400,000. And it made about $2.4 million back, which wasn't... I mean, obviously it wasn't terrible. It made its money back for sure. It was one of those things, like... And this has happened, like... This is a big thing for Kevin Smith movies. Like, it kind of found its audience on video. And especially because of, like, its independent, like, nature and production and distribution and everything, it was not easy to access unless you went to the rental store and got it from that, you know, that mom and pop store.
True. And, like, that's a big thing with that, actually, is because, like, that's why I didn't really get into Clerks until, like, around high school, and after high school, actually, because my parents hadn't gotten into that. That's how I got into a lot of my movies, was my parents. They didn't watch anything, Kevin Smith-wise, so they were never really fans of his, you know, and, like... Yeah,
same with my parents.
Yeah, we just never seen it, like, because
he
has, like...
that, like, showed you Clerks and shit.
Yeah, like, we had, like, family members and stuff like that, by all means, as well, that had, like, known about Clerks and liked Clerks and shit like that, but, like, we just never watched them. But we were, like, more into, a lot of older fucking, like, not even older shit, like, we were mostly just watching fucking shit that, like, came out that we were interested in. There was, like, nothing particular that we were looking at, and because of, like, you know, it being almost like under the radar, like, series, we didn't see Clerks and shit like that, but we had luckily found Evil Dead and shit, because, like, me and my dad watched fucking Army of Darkness, like, all the fucking time when I was a kid.
I didn't really watch horror movies when I was a kid, but my dad and I started watching horror movies, like, when I was allowed to, like, start watching them. He got me to watch, like, Saw, Basket Case, Dead Alive, shit like that.
see that.
Which one?
I meant just horror in general, but I guess if it was an age range, take your pick on like the youngest one.
Oh, I thought sorry, you cut out for a sec. I thought you were talking about a movie.
I was just saying, like, when the youngest, like how old were you when you were allowed to watch that shit?
13. I was in the 7th grade when he sat me down and we watched the first 2 Saw movies.
I used to be too scared to watch most horror movies, so I didn't watch a lot when I was a kid. I just watched like Evil Dead and shit like that. And like, I always liked Jason. Freddy freaked me the fuck out for some reason, but I like Jason, so I watched like fucking. Always watched Friday the 13th and shit like that.
Yeah, I didn't get into that shit till like middle school, high school.
I always grew up with the video store, so like I was like from the age of like 2 to like 3, I've always been in and out of there constantly. Honestly, I probably didn't start getting into horror probably until like high school, probably until I was like 14 or 15. Not that it necessarily scared the shit out of me relentlessly, it's just not shit I was super into. Like, my age range from like my 10 to 13 was like me just like watching R-rated comedies because I'm like, oh, I'm edgy. I can watch movies that say fuck your parents, don't let you say it, don't let you watch that.
Yeah, I was that kid.
My version of getting like of horror and stuff like that again was mostly like playing games. Like I'd been playing Blood and like fucking Doom when around the time like a lot of like people had really starting to watch their horror movies. Like I'd watch stuff on TV. It was mostly like again like passing though until like except for like Evil Dead and shit.
Blood Fresh Supply was fun.
I love Blood. I've been playing just the original OG Blood. So like it's one of those games like just like that one fucking Doom like 2 and fucking Duke Nukem 3D since like I was about like 6 honestly. I fucking like these games are just so enjoyable.
I guess we can jump back into the film itself with like our favorite scenes and shit.
Mine's always gonna be the one where it's just the most iconic one where they just keep her in the fucking basement.
Yeah, I think the first person camera chase scenes was mine. I just think fucking when he was running through the fucking house, I always thought that was a really cool fucking scene.
I think my favorite scene, and it's kind of typically whenever Bruce Campbell is just getting the worst of it. In this one, it's probably like when the demons are like when he like throws the book in the fire and all the demons like start melting and shit. When one of them falls to the ground, the head comes off and like this big gush of fucking blood after being completely caked in blood. He just takes an entire like load of more right to the face and in the eyes and shit after the head bounces off and you get that reaction shot of it hitting the wood. It's just it was pretty good timing. It was pretty funny.
There were some pretty fucking gnarly scenes in that fucking movie, dude, honestly.
And I think a lot of like the over the top nature of it kind of adds to the comedy. Like even though it's like kind of a atmospheric and like tone wise, it's kind of a creepy movie. There's shit like that's just it makes you laugh at the same time. Kind of a hard balance.
I love absolutely love the little balance of humor and fucking like horror they had in the first one. I think they like nail it in the second one better, but
I do
the first
too.
one has that like it's like a silver lining of humor inside of this horror movie, and it's just so perfectly done, honestly.
Definitely set the standard for the series, although it was kind of just, like you said, it was perfected in the second one. Whereas this one was more building the template for that.
The humor really, it came in, honestly. That's just where Ashley Williams became Ashley Williams.
Oh yeah, he's a way different character in this movie, which is another huge aspect of the movie, is Ash himself. He's like one of the most recognizable heroes of any horror franchise, possibly the most, aside from like maybe Laurie Strode.
Which is, yeah.
Or Dr. Loomis.
Super identifiable. Chainsaw hand, sawed-off shotgun, dude. Blue fucking shirt. Yeah, like, just all of his fucking quotes and shit like that. But, like, what the fuck? Like, he's not in a lot of, like, fucking games and shit like that. Like, he's not in a lot of other TV series or anything like that. Is like Easter eggs or anything either. I just thought that was weird.
I always think it's weird how he gets, like, offers for, like, big production movies. Like, even if he is in every single Sam Raimi movie, it's kind of cool that he's in all 3 Spider-Man movies. And it's even cooler that he has friends in the industry who, like, think that he was, like, the perfect fit as a gym coach in Sky High.
Oh my god, dude.
So go check out our...
We'll be talking about Sky High again.
Yeah, go...
Shit,
go check out the video for more on that.
Dude, super fucking Nazis and eugenics. That's all you need to know.
Hitler's Youth type shit, I guess.
It is, dude. There's eugenics. They basically...
They're creating super Nazis.
They're, like, creating the perfect race by using eugenics, dude.
I watched the dude's video. It's kind of shocking how he fucking draws that comparison when it comes to, like, Kurt Russell's character meeting Will's friends. He greets them and, like, asks them questions like a fucking Gestapo Nazi would. But anyway, yeah, go check out that video. It's a completely different discussion.
You said gazpacho for a second.
Gazpacho.
I was like, why?
Gazpacho. That's honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that's what you said for a second too, Dan. I thought you said gazpacho, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was pretty
I thought I said Gestapo. I may have... I don't know, we'll find out when I edit this shit later, I guess.
You definitely said Gestapo.
You know, Dan, when you edit this and we're talking about gazpacho, will you put gazpacho from Chowder on the screen?
Oh my god. I'll put that in the clip.
I miss Chowder, dude. You should make more. Surprising lack of Chowder porn on the internet. That's all I'm gonna say. They had that one big orange retard walking around the place that was just double caked up all the time. You know who I'm talking about? The one that just wanted... She just really wanted to she just really wanted fucking Mungdal's fucking big old blue weenie, apparently, or something. Enough to open her own business or some shit. Which is, like, weird.
I like the fact, because I know what kimchi is now, I like the fact that kimchi is a fucking fart cloud.
And he's a cloud of the fucking... He's like the miasma that builds up in the jar from all that shit fucking sitting in a jar in the ground for, like, a month.
I mean, dude, kimchi's good. It's really fucking good.
It's stinky.
Get it right, but goddamn, it smells bad.
It's so stinky. It's because it's, like, fermented.
Yeah.
Just a lot of fermented cabbage and stuff like that.
You can get really fucked up off it if you, like, fermented it right, though. It's actually kind of fucking awesome.
Why am I a poopy butthole? What in the fuck?
They say you've got a poopy butthole.
Oh.
You poopy ass wipe. I'm gonna shove my fucking fist up your ass.
Dude.
So what you do is you take the toilet paper and you make a mitt around your hand. That way you can't get shit anywhere on your fingers.
And then you just Spider-Man it.
And then, like, when you need to take the mitt off, you take a pair of scissors and cut it off.
Shut the fuck up. God damn it.
That's innocent. Like, I didn't think about taking it off. You can unwrap it and risk just covering your hand in your shit if you want, I guess.
We've got like a little bit of time before Foster has to leave, and we're talking about ass wipe.
You better wipe your ass correctly.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. I hope you're feeling cozy. Don't forget when you go to wipe your ass to wrap your hand up in toilet paper like a mummy.
Go see the fucking microphone. Don't make me.
God, no, we just got that picture away. Fuck, no, never mind, we didn't. I still got Goatsy on my monitor. God damn it.
I'll blast the microphone with some fucking compressed air right now. Don't make me.
I don't know what's worse, Goatsy originally or Goatsy with Bush's face in the sphincter hole. I don't know, they're both so fucking atrocious, but at least I'm not looking at a dude's organs.
Looking inside the other man's lines, though, and, like, let's be honest, the inside of that man's asshole looked like Bush anyway.
GeorgeWWBush.com.
When he farts, it's like Chewbacca dialect, but for an asshole, and he's just saying, I believe God wanted men to be free. I believe that. I made that part of my foreign policy.
Foreign policy.
GeorgeWWBush.com.
Fool me, won't get fooled again.
I don't like that, the goatsy picture with George W. Bush's face in it is,
oh my god.
that close to, it's, 2 images away from what I defaultly see whenever I open up this fucking shit. So
Somebody make it go away,
I have to look
please.
at my Sam Raimi fucking Spider-Man pictures, or I have to look at Goatsy, or I have to look at a sloth that kind of looks like Wade.
Hey, it's not original Goatsy. Bush is there to keep it company.
And then in between...
Oh, dude, that's so fucking disturbing looking.
Dude,
I've never realized how much I hate that fucking picture.
why did you put turd emojis in between the Tobey Maguire pictures? Please do something about the Goatsy picture.
Dan, I don't know what you're gonna use to replace that picture, but have fun looking.
You can use this picture here.
Who's that?
Oh, thank
It's a
God.
picture of me at work.
It looks like a Soviet making a pizza.
Man, I'm not really a Russian, but thanks, I guess.
Wish I could figure out how to record this fucking chat room. Like, the screen.
Hey, yo, deuces, my god.
Say goodnight, Foster. Everybody say goodnight to Foster.
Good night.
You should go out the front door and lock it behind you. I think I'm gonna get a little high before we finish. Right, Dan, let's finish this up real quick.
Sounds rad.
Okay, so... This is about how my microphone's gonna be. Hang on one second, I just gotta adjust it. One sec, sorry, I'm adjusting my mic. Because this is how I'm trying to get it set up how I'm gonna have it normally anyways. What you doing, Dan?
Yeah. Well, I see what you were talking about Lightning McQueen's big red cock now. I also see a bunch of other shit added to my outline notes that I shared with you. Starting with, hi Dan, I eat a lot of pussy all day, every day. Come get some. Hit me up at 350. Followed by rocket ship dick, and quite the load, probably at least 7 families into some poor person's mouth, and an arrow next to it with the name of your work. And then it says, customers who yell into the phone like I am as deaf as them. Anyways, check out my OnlyFans accounts. Pay me $5 and I will show you my butthole. Fuck women.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Number 10, Queef. Number 11, Lightning McQueen's big red cock. Number 12, Skibbity Bop Bop Explosion. Number 13, Trexes were only angry because they couldn't beat it.
Prove me wrong on that last one, though.
See, I can't though. It's so valid.
You're telling me you would be angry? I'd be pretty pissed. Alright, so how's my mic sound, by the way?
Pretty good. I can hear a straw going up and down.
No, that was just me adjusting it.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so we're all good now, though?
Yeah.
Right. Ready to finish this up, Daniel?
No. Why the fuck would we do that, Caleb? Christ.
Because I want to smoke some weed. Alright, so what are we on to? Are we doing final thoughts and ratings?
Get into the production facts and the release history a little bit. We've already talked about the accessibility, and then we'll go into our final thoughts and ratings. We'll just kind of wrap up after our thoughts and ratings and shit.
Alright.
Okay.
Alright, do you want to...
Yeah, I'll start. So basically, the main thing about the movie that most people will remember and kind of forgive a lot of the flaws about the movie for instance, the acting from the rest of the crew. You can even argue that Bruce Campbell's acting is not very good, but I think it kind of I don't know, his had a certain charm to it. It almost kind of fit the cheesiness of the film a little bit, whereas the acting from the other people and also like the way the characters were written, obviously it's a low budget horror film. They were written to die and to basically just be there to kill Bruce Campbell, essentially. They, you know, we although the other guy character, you can almost like make a suggestion or an argument that he was sort of the Janet Leigh of the film. We thought he was going to be the hero or the main protagonist, and then, you know, halfway through the movie, it turns out, you know, he leaves them all behind and like ditches them, and then, you know, as a result, he gets attacked by the creatures and, you know, dies and becomes possessed and is killed at the end along with the remaining creatures when Ash throws the book into the fire. But really, the main takeaway of the film is Ash and all of the insane wild shit his character goes through. Sort of the arc he goes through from being this kind of not really a loser, but kind of just like an everyday guy. Nobody like not like a movie hero per se, to ultimately like, you know, having to like stand his own and like fight for his survival and shit. It's a little weird considering the rules of this movie. You notice how like there's several times where he should have been possessed too and he wasn't.
He got didn't get possessed till the second movie, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's fucking
Arguably, he took okay. You can't take any more abuse than the tree rape, obviously, and he may have not been maimed as much as the other guy character, but like as far as like the like how much and for how long he put up with these attacks, and with one of the characters who just gets stabbed in the ankle with a pencil, that's enough. Whereas Ash goes through way more than that and is still alive and himself throughout the film.
Yeah, like not even just like physical damage. Like he straight up just gets like
tormented.
Like, like fucking mentally destroyed too. And like I feel like that's kind of why the second movie's a little more slapsticky. It's like Ash is a little crazy during it, but like I don't know. That's my reasoning, at least.
Yeah, it's good reasoning. So, like, even though normally I would bitch about a movie not really providing much in the way of relatable characters outside of the sole character. A good example is Friday the 13th Part 7. The only characters you like are the bad guy and the main character. It's something I should criticize here, but I feel like the movie was never trying to emphasize the group. It was always this one character that would... Yeah, it was about this one character who would continue the series, and basically, like you said earlier, the POV shots and the atmosphere and the comedy and the continuous push for graphics, special effects.
You couldn't have the original trilogy without Bruce Campbell. Like, if they changed actors, like in the second one or in fucking Army of Darkness, it wouldn't have been the same. Like, it would have been noticeable right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks volumes for the way Bruce Campbell is able to act out this character with such simple writing, though. Because the writing isn't anything extensive. It's just the way he carries himself in the film. So props to him. But again, Ashley Williams is the takeaway. You could put him in almost any universe, really.
Likeable and relatable.
Yeah, he could put him in almost any universe, and he would still be a main takeaway point because he's again relatable and he's fucking funny as shit. And and like he does do some pretty kick-ass stuff sometimes, like when he cut his hand off because it was getting possessed and shit.
You definitely see more of his character as the series goes on, but for this film, he served his purpose, but he definitely...
In this film, he was kind of almost like meant to be more generic, and like you can definitely tell, but like again, it doesn't really come off as generic though, and that's what's always been that's what I think's so impressive about it.
He's not a douchebag. He's not necessarily... I mean, maybe you would argue me on this one. I wouldn't say he's like a pretty boy. He's not like something you would see on Nickelodeon or a soap opera, you know what I mean?
No, he's a handsome guy. He's not pretty. He's a handsome dude. Like, he's got kind of like a rough look to him in this movie, which is like whatever. But like, it's just like the actor though. He's just like got kind of a handsome look to him. He's not like pretty boy, because honestly the other guy in this movie is more of the pretty boy look. Like, he's got that like blonde hair and all that shit too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know, I think he gets better as the series goes on, but I think for what for the dialogue he's given and for how much his character changes and starts to degrade and like ultimately prevail, I think he served his purpose, and I think he did it better than any other actor at the time probably would have, without making it either too cheesy or not at all in tone with the film.
Yeah, I don't really think a lot of actors, especially during that time period, would have been able to pull off Ashley Williams as well as Bruce Campbell does.
Yeah, and in a film where there's like Tim Burton-esque tree rape and
absolutely just like extensive amounts of gore and just over the top fucking shit.
Bodies being dismembered and being like partially buried alive and shit. Just really graphic stop motion, which is such a lost form. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You kind of need a character like that with everything else that's going on. And also to like kind of go along with like the creepy atmosphere. Like, he's kind of the audience in this film. He's more like the audience in this movie rather than what the audience would want to be in the second and third film, or at least halfway through the second film.
Right.
So it is definitely like an arc, like throughout the trilogy, I think. So I think, yeah.
By the third movie, like, yeah, he for sure is like a lot different than in the first. Like, a lot different than in the first. Like, it's like a pretty much a completely new character, and it's like really good character growth. Really good character growth.
Yeah, confident.
But at the same time,
has been through it all.
It's like
sort of
surprising that he's so different, when you see it. But then you're like, yeah, you kind of take into account what he's been through.
Yeah, and he's losing patience and like wants to like finally fucking win and go home.
Yeah, like by the time Ash vs. Evil Dead comes around, Ashley Williams is fucking tired of being the hero. He wants to go to bed. He just kind of wants to be able to be his womanizer self,
Go back to working at S-Mart.
It's pretty fun watching him, like, grow as the character, though, because, like, he's always going to be Ashley Williams with his, like, kind of dumbass, like, behavior and stuff like that, but he's, like, dumb but lovable. Yeah,
for sure. But, so that's, like, aside from Ash, the effects, especially for the time, the atmosphere, the camera work, there isn't really much else to... Yeah, there isn't really that much to say other than it's a really good movie that is well deserving of the reputation it's got and the legacy it's acquired over the years. It's just, I don't know, there's not really a whole lot to unpack with this one like I think there is with the second one. It's just I think it's a very ambitious, very different, kind of something we'll never see again, and for a few reasons.
Like, because again, like, we don't have that much memorabilia about the first one. Like, it's never been, like, you never really see the pop culture references to the first one. I mean, there might be a joke about the rape tree, but even then, you could just say that's about the second one. The second one's where it really got, like, hit its sprint, so, you know, we'll be able to really go into detail about that. But with the first one, like, you know, like, the main character is pretty much just the main, like, that's that. He's the main character, you know, and then you have, like, it's like, again, that sounds kind of dumb, but that's what it is. But the way they managed to turn it into this, like, insanely detailed movie full of impressive, like, camera shots and, like, impressive recording styles and shit like that, it's nuts. It's a lot of revolutionary shit, like a lot of stuff that people hadn't been doing before that, and, like, a lot of his techniques and shit are still used today. Like, he was one of the first ones to use those really overhead shots using, like, low-flying drones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's shitty.
That's cool. Like, that's some cool stuff. Like, it's incredible how, like, how much passion they put into the first one.
And it, like, it's like, it's kind of a big part of, like, what makes the movie so impressive is how inexperienced everybody was. Like, this movie was marred with problems. Like, nobody had really worked on a, like, fully produced film before. There really wasn't a whole lot of... There wasn't really a whole lot of consideration for the weather, so when they got up there, the temperatures would drop so fucking low that it became such a problem to film for a while. There was an incident where someone had broken in and stolen a lot of shit. Ironically, none of the filming equipment, and also, you know, plenty of injuries, particularly with Bruce Campbell. There were a shit ton of injuries.
He like rolled his ankle really bad. I know that. He broke something, didn't he?
I believe so.
He like broke like a rib or some shit like that. Fuck, I don't know. I'm gonna check that real quick.
The first day of shooting on the bridge scene, the crew got lost in the fucking woods. So, like, lost an entire day of fucking shooting there. Another issue that they face that, like, it's really kind of fucked up, but it's also kind of like, it's kind of silly that this was never really thought of. But then again, I don't know, this was a different time. This was back, like, the film was released in 81, but it was shot, like, during, like, 1979. So it was a different time, but, like, all the fog in the film was oil-based, and because, like, of the high toxicity, like, the volume that was being used and shit, and the conditions on set, a lot of the crew members got really fucking sick. So, like, there was sickness, there was freezing temperatures, there was injuries, there was getting lost in the woods, there was robberies, there was a $400,000 project, a shooting schedule that went well beyond the original time frame. Like, this movie was hell on earth.
Oh yeah, like, it was not like a lot. Like, if you like watch any of the actors talk about it, like, they don't fondly talk about it.
They talk about it, like, in retrospect, like, kind of like, we're glad we did it, but we'd never do that shit again.
That, like, the injuries again, like, were a huge thing. A lot of people just got really hurt. I know the tree rape scene was really uncomfortable. Like, everyone on set, like, was not a big fan about that.
Understandably, I can't really think of a movie that, like... Well, actually, no, I can... Yeah, no, never mind. Pink Flamingos. Definitely worse, but still, for a horror film for, you know, just people looking for, you know, a scary movie. It's a little bit out there.
The person in Pink Flamingo wasn't exactly thrilled to be filming that scene either. I mean,
oh my god!
Again, a lot of the time those scenes, like, it's not like they don't know about it. Like, they do. It's just like, fuck, they don't, like, they dread getting to it. And then when they get to it, it's just so fucking bad.
We're gonna have to talk about Pink Flamingos one day. That's a movie.
I really want to watch fucking Mandy, dude. We gotta do Mandy.
We gotta do Mandy. We gotta do it.
Mandy's fucking crazy.
We gotta do Nicolas Cage movie at some point, yep. Preferably.
We should just do a fucking bunch of Nicolas Cage movies and just do like
Oh
a
my
really
god.
long episode. Like a fucking 4-hour episode about it.
Oh, no. We're gonna need a lot of cocaine for that.
We'll just find the good Nicolas Cage movies, like Mandy. Mandy's a really good one.
Yeah, fair.
We can watch National Treasures if we want. Since apparently I forgot there was only 2 of them. I swear to God there was 3 of them, dude.
No, a lot of people remember a Homeward Bound 3 and there isn't one.
Why was National Treasures in... Like, it felt like it was in theaters so much more than just for 2 movies, though. Did they, like... I don't know, it's weird. I don't know. I feel like it was just more prevalent in my childhood than, like, 2 movies for some reason, I guess. Because, like, I know I went and seen the first 2 in movies, but, I mean, like, the first 2 movies in, like, theaters. But, like, fuck, dude, I feel like I went and watched a 3rd movie.
So, Caleb, with all the bullshit that they went through to make this movie...
There is 3 movies. Fuck you, Dan.
Wait, 3 National Treasures?
Yeah, there's fucking 3 National Treasures.
No, there isn't.
Yes, there is.
I looked it up, there's only 2.
No, fuck you. There's 3.
There's only 2, bro.
No, I'm looking at the 3rd movie right now.
No, you're not. That's a load of shit.
No, it's the 3rd fucking movie. They just haven't released it.
Why
It's
did...
in development.
Oh.
So, I mean, you're still correct. There was only 2 when I was a kid. But, like, fuck you, there's 3 now. Well, still not now, but, like, technically. What, like... I fucking swear there was a fucking 3rd movie out when I was a kid. I love Nicolas Cage. I feel like Nicolas Cage gets more hate than he deserves.
Oh, no, he doesn't.
He's in a lot of shitty movies, but I still... No, fuck you, he does. He's in a lot of shitty movies.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people just shit all over him a little too hard sometimes.
I mean, I'm sure he's a... Well, I'm not sure he's a...
Kick-Ass, dude. Remember he was in Kick-Ass. He was really good in Kick-Ass.
Okay, that's fair. That was a good movie, actually. And he was good in it. I forget about Kick-Ass, honestly.
Mandy. Dude, Joe. He was good in Joe. I remember that's when Nicolas Cage started, going for his more mature look.
Yeah.
His beard and stuff like that.
I remember when it came out. I didn't see it. So, Caleb, with all the bullshit that they went through to make this movie, to get it released, to get it out in the video stores, and to lift the bans, and to eventually, a few years later, get a sequel made, was their effort... Here's a couple questions. Was their effort worth it? And are the things that we would normally look down on for a movie for either not having or not executing properly, are those things that we can forgive with Evil Dead? Like the lack of side characters, the weak dialogue, you know...
I can personally say for myself at least, I think it's definitely worth all the shit that people went through, and I definitely think I can look past these things.
I do too.
Because, they did a lot of extra shit that a lot of actors wouldn't have done.
Yeah, they did.
And they, also weren't planning on it ever having a sequel anyways. I'm pretty sure they were just, they were definitely surprised with it going places.
It was also, it was kind of cool, because it was, that these, a lot of the people involved with this movie were not trained, or at least didn't have any real experience doing any of this. And the fact that they...
For sure they didn't.
And the fact that, they just went out into the woods and fucking did it anyway. They basically just decided, we're gonna raise enough money to go out into the woods and just kind of hope for the best. And what they made was just something that kind of changed everything about horror, which is kind of it's kind of the same reason why we love Clerks, in a way. Kind of showed you that it kind of showed a lot of horror fans and a lot of film fans that, anybody could fucking do it.
One of the reasons I can really like ignore a lot of the issues though is because like a lot of again like the budget like the budget was so fucking tight and it doesn't feel like it like in the fucking movie. Like it does not feel like at any point like the fucking movie like they ran out of budget or something like that. It feels like
I almost wonder if it would be not as good or not as, like... I almost wonder if it would have the same charm that it does if it had a higher budget. Like, if they had more to work with instead of having to be creative and resourceful, would it have worked as well?
See, I don't think it would have. Like, I think what made it as good as it is like, the fact that they really took what they had, which was very much and fucking ran with it. Which is, like, definitely impressive, because not a lot of people would have been able to make a fucking movie out of what they took, essentially. What they had.
It's something that I miss in an era when most studios and even a lot of, not all, but a lot of studios and a lot of independent filmmakers kind of want to, like, have a fanboy film or, like, rehash shit that we've, like, already seen. Or stories that, like, for some reason need further continuation. There was nothing else really like this at the time, and even with the remake, it's still nothing like what the 81 film was.
Yeah, dude, that I was kind of thinking about that the other day. It's like, and it's just kind of like that with a lot of forms of media as well. Just in general, we aren't really getting anything new. It's just a lot of rehashing at this point. Like,
Yeah.
We haven't had anything really groundbreaking.
And don't get me wrong, I liked Star Wars Episode 7, I liked the new Halloween, but it's like, I also kind of want to see some new stories. I want to see movies that, like, and that's why I like the A24 fucking films. Like, those, especially their horror films, like, I feel like that's the closest thing to a new movement in horror that we have, are the A21 films. Because they're so abstract and so different. And, I don't know. It's the closest thing we have to anything that's, like, collectively and, like, cumulatively, like, a new fucking scene in horror. Whereas before it was just the age of remakes and prequels and sequels and comebacks and shit.
We just need to, like, encourage new things in media as well. Like, people, I'm not saying, like, don't buy the new Call of Duty game if you want by any means, but, like, people buying these things that, like, are yearly releases of the exact same thing aren't helping the situation, you know? Like, you can enjoy Call of Duty by all means. I'm not saying you can't, but, like, I don't know if that makes sense, I guess. Like,
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, how many more Saw movies do we need? How many more Transformers movies do we need? For fuck's sakes, when is Fast and Furious gonna end?
Yeah, like, Fast and Furious should have ended such a fucking, like, a long time ago, honestly.
That's another thing that's great. That's another thing that's great about this series. It never overstayed its welcome, and it never really repeated itself. Everything was different.
Yeah, like, I want more, but at the same time, I'm not sitting here like, oh damn, like, I need more. Like, they left me like with nothing basically. Because they kind of finished it up anyways with Ash vs. Evil Dead. Like, I mean, yeah, they left the possibility of more coming. Like,
I still need to watch that show.
It's not like they made it like, if there wasn't anything new, like, you wouldn't, like, it would be like some devastating fucking situation, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I really do need to watch that show. I need to catch up. Cause
it's really good.
Because I was really,
I love versus Evil Dead, honestly. I think it's a perfect, like, modernized version of fucking, like, a modernized, like, title.
And in all honesty, I'm not gonna lie, I'd kind of like a follow-up to the remake, even.
Oh, dude, I'm hoping for a follow-up, honestly.
Because I really liked that movie, and I really liked the characters in it. I think that's one thing that it had beat over the original. Like, the one thing, like, I like the different things about it. I just like what the original did better. But the one thing I will agree is I like the, like, side characters better. And I also really loved the protagonist.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a solid array of characters in that one. But anyway,
if they did a remake, would you want them to have like an Ash cameo in it again, or would you want them to just full on bring Ash in?
I wouldn't want Ash in at all. I kind of like the idea of this being its own thing.
Yeah, but like they kind of like with that cameo, you're kind of like it's almost like you're expecting him at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wish it could just be its own thing. I mean, if it's gonna bank off the name Evil Dead and, like, use that concept again, and, like, even go as far as to, like, recreate similar imagery, at least go in, like, a different timeline or with different characters. Like, make it...
They're gonna do with it I don't think they're gonna, like, rehash it. I feel like they wouldn't, like have him just be, like, a character that shows up for a little bit or something like that. He shows up and, like, helps them or something like that.
I hope if they do it for the right reasons, at least.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just, like, for familiarity and because it will put asses in seats and shit.
Mm-hmm.
But, if they work a good story around it, I'd be down. It could be cool. But I don't know. I kind of like the whole. I don't know. I like the story of the new one, and I liked it as its own thing too. But anyway, that's a different movie with a different rating. What would you say your final thoughts are on this movie, and what would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think Evil Dead is a fantastic way to start the series, but is not like something that you have to like start the series with by any means. Mm-hmm. And I would recommend, honestly, if I was to recommend someone to start like the series that was just starting it off, honestly, I would probably even say start off on the second one. Like, I feel like the second one kind of introduced it, had like the recap of it like perfectly. I mean, it shortened it up enough to obviously, be fit into a single like opening, of course, but I think Evil Dead 1 is an important movie, but it isn't like the best in its own franchise by any means. I'd say it's probably about 7 out of 10, honestly, 7 to 8. Still a high score, of course, but
yeah, definitely not bad.
Like the best in the series.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. Definitely not the best. I still think it's mandatory for, anyone who's getting into horror, especially from the 80s. I think it's one of the staples of it, along with Evil Dead 2. I as a horror fan, I'm probably more of a horror fan than I am a comedy fan. Sorry. I probably prefer the tone of the first one over the tone of, like Army of Darkness. It's kind of hard between Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2. It's just, I felt like Evil Dead was literally the perfect blend and the perfect horror comedy, which they were alluding to in the first film anyway. And I think it was shot better. I think the emphasis on Ash was necessary. I didn't want to see another group of characters. Well, I mean, we got another group of characters in 2, but there wasn't as much, quote, emphasis on them.
Like they were trying to replace the characters. What I was kind of like feeling like it was almost like it felt like a natural like new group of characters coming in though. Yeah,
it did. And they actually I don't know, they were actually there to achieve a goal and to do something, whereas everybody in the first film was just kind of there to die. But like I said, it was everybody's first film. It was a starting point. It was a hell of a starting point. Both of the first 2 films are in my 100 favorite films list, and currently the original Evil Dead is number 77. I got my Letterboxd list pulled up. So I definitely have a lot of love for The Evil Dead, and it is one I go back to from time to time. Even I will acknowledge it's not exactly the best of the series, but it's essential nonetheless.
I think a big thing is it doesn't hold up as well compared to like the rest of the series.
Pacing wise, I think you might be right. Like I said, mainly with the supporting characters, but the standouts of the film are just too damn good to ignore. And every time I see the final act of the film, it reminded me like why I pushed through the first act of like setting everything up. So, yeah,
I'm never disappointed when I watch it by any means. Like, I just don't think a lot of the scenes there's a lot of the scenes that are just absolutely fucking apeshit crazy by all means. Don't get me wrong, but like, I just don't think a lot of the scenes hold up as well as they do, like in, let's say, the second one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah, agreed. And like you said, they kind of found their perfect balance with the second one. But yeah, I still love the first Evil Dead. Even though I would probably legitimately give it an 8 out of 10, I enjoy it enough to give it a 9. And yeah, I've always loved the first Evil Dead. For a long time, I liked it better than 2. But it's one of those things, the more I watch these movies, the more I kind of lean towards part 2. And I sort of see that one as the centerpiece of the series. So that was pretty much it for our thoughts on The Evil Dead. Be sure to check out our OnlyFans account. Pay us $5 and we will show you our butthole.
If you pay an extra $10, you can see my jungle bridge.
Alright, thanks for checking it out, guys. Thanks for coming, chatting with us, turning the fuck up, and talking Evil Dead with us. Let us know in the comments what you think of this film, what you would rate it. Was there anything we missed? I know there was, because I was looking at my notes most of the time. Definitely got some work ahead of us for the next couple episodes, but this was a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again. Hopefully, like we said before, all together, like in the same room, the way we originally intended. But for what it was, I think this definitely could have gone worse.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, for sure.
Having fucking the mic just not work.
Thanks for checking it out, guys. Thanks for coming by. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care.